Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, the show here on Let's Talk Entertainment, where I am aspiring to locate, read, and briefly review each of the roughly 600 short stories written by the late, great Ray Bradbury. I've been at this little project since 2018. Here we are near the end of 2025, and I never imagined it would take so long, or that I would still have so much time to go. But here we are on story number 292, which is also the 8th of 21 short stories in the author's 1997 collection, Driving Blind. It is the namesake story, it is the title story, rather, of this collection, Driving Blind. If you're new to the show, the way that this works is I do a very brief synopsis of what happens in the story, sort of all the plot, character, and action, and then I wrap up with just a very light analysis, just my basic impressions of what the story means. Is it a good story? What do I take away from it? Is it worth your time to read? But ideally, you've already read this story and you've come here to sort of listen to my thoughts and see if you take away the same thing that I do. And there's not a lot of people talking about many of these stories. His best-known stories get a lot of coverage still, but I don't know of anyone else who's really aspiring to read and review all of his stories, so maybe I'm it. Maybe I'm your only option. Maybe we are in this together. So here we are. One day, a great, big, brand new 1929 Studebaker rolls into a little town in Illinois. I think it was Greentown, Bradbury's fictional town there. Behind the wheel is a man wearing a hood, a big black hood like an executioner from the Middle Ages over his head, and he cannot possibly see. This immediately begins to cause a stir. People are watching, people are following, and among the people who are following is a little boy named Quint, who is also our narrator in this tale. When a police officer pulls the man over, we learn that his name is Phil Dunlop, and he's a car salesman from the next town over, and he's come to sell cars. But he needs a place to stay while he's gonna be here over the next week. So Quentin takes him home to his grandmother's boarding house to live and stay and eat and sleep there. But he decides to call him Mr. Mysterious rather than Phil, which is kind of interesting. Over the next few days, he begins to sell his cars, and they get to know each other and begin to discuss the reasons for his hood. Phil tells a story where at some point in his past he was horrifically injured. He doesn't know if it was at birth or whether it was later, but he says he can't remember when the injury happened, but he basically hints that the fact that under his hood he has no face and that he's hasn't been able to sort of bring it upon himself to even look at the face for many years. But he is there in town now, looking for a new start. Years ago, feeling hurt, feeling injured by his condition, he cut himself off from the world. He put up the hood. He blocked everyone else. But he thinks that maybe now he's willing to take a chance. And he says that, I think that if I continue to come to this town and I stay here over the next year, perhaps a time will come where, in a sense, in the minds of other people, my injuries will be healed, and I won't even need this mask or this hood. Or if I have this hood, no one will care because they'll really just be seeing me. One night, I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but he does show his face to Quint. It's dark out, there's fireflies are in the backyard, but it's not revealed to us what Quint saw. The next day, Quint sort of has a revelation, and he suggests to Phil that perhaps you were never injured. Perhaps you were only scared and you felt hurt and you felt injured, and so you locked yourself away from the world needlessly, and maybe now a time will come when you don't need the hood because you will feel more comfortable in your own skin. This brings Phil to tears. A tear actually comes down his face, he reveals, and Phil remarks about Quint that, I can see right through your rib cage to your heart, because Quint is a perceptive little boy who wears his heart on his sleeve and sort of is honest with this man in a way that no one's been honest with him in many years. In the end, they decide to stop using the name Mr. Mysterious. And of course, they need a new name, so jokingly he says, "How about the human fly?" And he begins to act like he's climbing up the side of the building. I'm not sure if it was anything serious about this or not, but they decide against it, and instead they decide to go home and have breakfast at Grandma's boarding house instead. All right, so This is the namesake, the title story of Driving Blind, and is hands down the best story in the collection. It's probably the first truly great Ray Bradbury story that I've read in quite some time. I'm going through this process of reading all these stories. I'm not going after the crown jewels. I'm going for every story, even the one of least significance. But this is a significant story, even if it's not that well known. It is funny, it is poignant, it is heartfelt, and it kind of reminds me of sort of like the novels and short stories of Stephen King, sort of the lesser known ones that turn into great movies. Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, there's a couple other ones, Hearts in Atlantis, all these ones that aren't, and there's elements of horror and magic and things like that, but really, in the end, it's more about the human condition. And I'm very much reminded of something like that. It's not a well-known Bradbury story, but I think that this is a story that is useful and relevant in this world more than ever today. It's about self-perception versus how other people treat us based on their perceptions of us. And as difficult as it is to be hurt by other people, we can also inflict much more damage upon ourselves by having been hurt, and then the ways in which we cut ourselves off from civilization. So Bradbury very slickly weaves together a tale that I say very much comments about racism, about bullying, about all the things that happen to people that make them feel like monsters, make them feel out of place, make them feel like they don't belong. And so I love how, as he often does, Bradbury sort of juxtaposes this against the openness of a child, the uncorrupt state of a child before they've gone out into the world, to school. Usually is the beginning of it, where they meet other people, and some of those kids come from different backgrounds, and of course kids often inevitably do mean things. I did one or two mean things in my life even as a kid. But I'm a person who came to regret those actions, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people, whether they are truly sociopaths or not, they do have elements of that where, they see themselves as the top dog, and it's really not. It's not good, and it leads to the twisting and the deforming of good people. And so I found this story to be quite relatable. Over the years, I've become a more and more guarded person. And then I often feel like on the occasions when I put myself out there, it sort of comes back to bite me in the ass. Like I become open, I become more giving than the person who I'm giving to. And so it's better to give than receive, but the point of that axiom is that everybody is giving, so everybody is also receiving. And I find like that I felt like at various points I've poured my heart into different types of relationships, different activities, different groups, trying to create connections that I never really felt like I was fully able to make. Whereas in those situations, I often felt like I was like bringing people together, putting them in the room together, and they become friends, which is great. But and then they move on from me. Sort of like that's my experience of, my teen years through to today. And so, in the face of different types of feelings of exclusion and cruelty and bullying and all of that, I become more guarded. And, my main outlet now is YouTube. But of course, I have some control over the way people interact with my videos on YouTube. And of course, it's not face to face. Being treated cruelly, even over the internet, can be very destructive, especially to younger people. But for me, it's actually a means of controlling the way that people interact with me. So there you have it, Driving Blind. Wonderful, wonderful little story. One of the longer ones in the collection as well. Not too long, probably 10, 15 pages. But I really liked it. I highly recommend it. This is a story that in a more fair world would have a bigger reputation. The heyday for Bradbury was his 40s output mostly, which was very early in his career. I mean, he started in the 30s, but you would think that he didn't have an entire career long after that. But this story was in a collection from 1997. I assume it was being called Driving Blind. It was probably written new in 97, but it takes place in 1929. So Bradbury very much writing stories about times of his youth, but sort of in the process proving that those simple times also had their troubles, and so in that way he sort of makes what we're living through today more relatable as well. So the feeling that you're not alone, because these are not new, even if like we talk about social media bullying as being sort of the new danger, nothing has actually changed except for the method of delivery. But there you have it, Driving Blind, 1997, story number 8 of 21 in Driving Blind, and also the 292nd short story review that I've done here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. Next time, I Wonder What's Become of Sally. Thank you, and I'll see you again next time.